Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Penn Vicarage on this Thursday morning. And as always, thank you for joining us for our Bible reading for today as we continue our adventure through the Psalms and the second of the Psalms in Book 3, which is Psalm 74. And as I say, we've had all sorts of emotions through the Psalms so far, and today's one completely different. So here goes, Psalm 74, here goes. O God, why do you cast us off forever? Why does your anger smoke against the sheep of your pasture? Remember your congregation, which you acquired long ago, which you redeemed to be the tribe of your heritage. Remember Mount Zion, where you came to dwell. Direct your steps to the perpetual ruins. The enemy has destroyed everything in the sanctuary. Your foes have roared within your holy place. They've set up their emblems there. At the upper entrance, they hacked at the wooden trellis with axes. And then, with hatchets and hammers, they smashed all its carved work. They set your sanctuary on fire. They desecrated the dwelling place of your name, bringing it to the ground. They said to themselves, we will utterly subdue them. They burned all the meeting places of God in the land. We do not see our emblems. There's no longer any prophet, and there's no one among us who knows how long. How long, O Lord God, is the foe to scoff? Is the enemy to revile your name forever? Why do you hold back your hand? Why do you keep your hand in your bosom? Yet God, my King, is from of old, working salvation in the earth. You divided the sea by your might. You broke the heads of the dragons in the waters. You crushed the heads of Leviathan. You gave him as food for the creatures of the wilderness. You cut openings for springs and torrents. You dried up ever-flowing streams. Yours is the day, yours also the night. You established the luminaries and the sun. You fixed all the bounds of the earth. You made summer and winter. Remember this, O Lord, how the enemy scoffs and an impious people reviles your name. Do not deliver the soul of your dove to wild animals. Do not forget the life of your poor forever. Have regard for your covenant, for the dark places of the land are full of the haunts of violence. Do not let the downtrodden be put to shame, and let the poor and needy praise your name. Rise up, O God, plead your cause. Remember how the impious scoff at you all day long. Do not forget the clamour of your foes, the uproar of your adversaries that goes up continually. And this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. So, as I said, we've had all sorts of emotions in the Psalms so far. We've had happiness, we've had thanksgiving, we've had sadness, we've had anger, we've had you name it. We had jealousy yesterday. But today we have what can only be described as utter national catastrophe. It really is. Clearly, some enemies have come along and they've trashed Jerusalem, including the temple and the holy places and everything. They've clearly smashed everything. Now, we don't know exactly when it was, but almost certainly it was 587 BC when the people of Judah were taken into exile. They were the foreigners came in and they destroyed the place and took the people away into exile. And they destroyed the place. And that's almost certainly what it was. So we have here, as I say, a sign of complete and utter catastrophe is what's going on in this morning's psalm. So what can we say about it? Firstly, it is, as often the case when people are running on the back foot, he says some very, very strong prayers to God. He asks God, well, why do you cast us off? And again, why does your anger smoke against the sheep of your pasture? So he's asking God why this is happening. And again, he clearly sees God as being in charge, but he can't understand why God has either made this happen or allowed this to happen. He's not quite sure which. So he comes before God. And in God's presence, he asks God to remember his people. The people who are being downtrodden at the moment, just remember who these people are. This is the congregation who you acquired long ago, which you redeemed to be the tribe of your heritage. That's almost it, looking back to the days of Moses when he was set free from Egypt and across the desert into the promised land and so on. The congregation that you acquired a long time ago, the people of God that you delivered from Egypt and so on. Mount Zion, looking back to the days of David, David setting up Mount Zion and in Jerusalem and so on, where you came to dwell. And what he's saying to God is, remember what has happened in the past and all that good work, the people that you've acquired, the place you put them, all the great, it has all been smashed. That's what he's basically saying. And he comes to God and says sort of why and so on. Why is this happening? And again, why is a question that we all ask sometimes, isn't it? When we ask God to remember, we don't understand why things happen sometimes, and we cry out to God, and that's something that we all do. And Asaph clearly does it in this morning's psalm here. Then he brings before God the actions of the foes. These enemies have gone into the holy place and they've smashed it. And there's quite a strong sense in which Asaph is saying to God here, look, this is your place which they're smashing. It isn't just ours. This is your place. This is your sanctuary, the place where you are. So he's almost saying, why are you allowing these people to come in and smash what is basically your own property? It's like, would you welcome a burglar to come and trash your house? That's essentially, I think, that's what he's saying here. And so he's lays before God in verses sort of 3 to 8 the situation that they're in, that it is God's house that these people are demolishing. So he says, God, why are you allowing this to happen? And then he goes on in verses 9 to 11 to talk about the fact that basically there is no hope. We do not see our emblems. Emblems is code for military power. We do not. So we don't see any military way out of this. Is essentially what it is. We don't see our emblems. We don't see any military way out of this. And he goes on to say, there's no longer any prophet. So there's no one telling us. There's no prophet speaking prophecies any longer. So there's no way of knowing how long this is going to go on for. So he's saying, how long, O Lord, is going to go on, because we have no military power to help ourselves, and we've got no prophet to tell us how long it's going to be either. So how long, O Lord, is this going to go on? Is the enemy to revile your name forever? And he can't. In verse 9, he expresses he can't see any kind of hope. He can't see. There seems to be no military way out. There seems to be no prophet to tell them how long it's going to be, how long they've got to put the lip for. It's so in a sense that's what's going on here. So these foes have trashed the land. It's God's place that they're trashing, and then he's saying to God in no uncertain terms, you just can't see any hope. Don't know how long this is going to go on for. And then yet, despite all of this, actually, and yet, if you go on to verses 12 to 19, Asaph's faith still continues. He still knows that God is the God who continues to work salvation in the earth. He knows that God is God who divided the sea, broke the heads of the dragons in the waters, and opened springs dry. And yours is the day, yours is also the night. You fix the bounds of the earth, you make summer and winter. He still knows in his heart, his faith is still strong actually. He knows that God is God. Whatever's happened in Jerusalem, or whatever's happened in the church, in the church, in the temple, and so on, however disastrous things may be in the land, actually Asaph's faith still continues. And whatever's going on for us, actually, however difficult things may be in the church or whatever it may be, actually God is still God. And however difficult things may be for us in our lives or whatever, it doesn't stop the fact that God is still God. And Asaph has this kind of double thing in his head. On the one hand, he sees this catastrophe going on. He knows God is still in charge, yet he's still saying to God, why is this going to happen? So you've got a catastrophe going on. You've got his total faith in the power, the majesty, and the lordship of God in all things. And yet, so with all that in mind, he brings the two before God, and he prays to God, have regard for your covenant and the dark places of your land. And in particular, the poor and the downcast, the poor and the needy, because he knows that these enemies will make it much worse for them. So he says, as well as for your honour and for the people and so on, don't forget the poor and needy as well, So rise up, he says, rise up, O God, plead your cause. Remember how the empires scoff at you. Don't let them scoff at you. Do not forget the clamour of your foes, the uproar of your adversaries that goes up continually. So for the sake of the land, for the sake of your name, O God, and for the sake of the poor and needy, come on, rise up, help us out, and bring an end to this catastrophe, please. So you've got a lot going on in here. It's clearly a very, very difficult time. And Asaph brings it all before God. And so, beginning, he asks God why this has happened. Okay, and he remembers the people that you've helped all these years ago. Why are you allowing it to happen now? Then he goes on to talk about the things that the foes have done, not just destroying land, but also destroying God's place. So he's saying to God, why are you letting your places get destroyed? He then goes on to say, we see no hope. Our emblems, our military power is gone, and we see no profit. So we don't know how long this is going on for. Yet, despite all this catastrophe, he knows that God is king, that God is the one who fix the bounds of the earth. God is still God, whatever may be happening in the temple. And we need to remember that, whatever may be going on in the church, it doesn't alter the fact that God is God. And how whether people believe it or accept it or not, actually, it doesn't alter the fact that God is still God. And then at the end he says, for the sake of your name and for the sake of the poor and needy, rise up, help us out, and don't let the adversaries win the day. Come on, oh God, so to speak, pull your finger out and rescue us. Hope that makes sense. A lot in there, but it's an interesting psalm. Read it again at your leisure and see what you think.